All right, thank you for joining us here at Jenson USA. Today we're going to dive in a little bit and talk about the differences of some coil shocks and air shocks here and what might be best for you. I'm Kyle here with Jenson USA. We're one of the gear advisors here. Really want to go in depth a little bit about air shocks and coil shocks that might be best for your bike and application. Right now, I would say air shocks by far are the most primarily used on most trail bikes, short travel bikes, but we are starting to see a trend of coil shocks really start to take place with new switches on there to be able to have high, low speed compression and rebound, as well as the new updated pedal platforms on these shocks as well. So we'll get into this a little bit more in depth and really go to the difference of what might be best for you. Again, so riding characteristics and stuff is really going to change with coil shocks comparable to air shocks. Your air shock, we'll go through that a little bit here. So right here I have one of the new Öhlins TTX shocks is in front of me. What I'm going to say is probably what you're going to see in the last few years why the air shock is really the primary shock that's used on a mid-travel bike is the versatility out of it. What you have in this is you have the ability to adjust your air spring by air pressure, which changes the spring rate. Makes it very easy to adjust according to your weight and sag. You also have in here to be able to set up air volume spacers. The air volume spacer is actually going to change the progressiveness of the shock itself. So if you like the bike to be a little, if you're bottoming out or you're having issues with your mid-stroke to your in-stroke or going through it too quick, you have a very easy ability to change that with just volume spacers on most manufacturing shocks now. Most modern shocks now also have a climb switch on them that you have most of them a three-way position of a trail, open, as well as a pedal mode, high and low speed compression and rebounds on those as well. The downfall, I would say, that you're seeing more people go to the coil shock is what happens when you have an air shock and you have air pressure. Altitudes, temperatures, all can change that air volume pressure in there, essentially changing your air spring. So if you're changing from temperatures as well as to altitudes in the same day, your air pressure can dramatically change, changing your ride characteristics. Also, you have a lot more friction with this that you can see around the seal head, comparable to a coil shock. So what you have is a little bit tighter seal. Air pressure is pushing the shaft out. It takes a lot of force to break that to begin with. And what happens is that smaller bump sensitivity, we lose just a little bit. Pro with that though, is it does keep the bike a little bit more up in its travel, a little bit more poppy. And let's say if you're someone who likes to jump, little jabbing here and there, the air shock does really play a preference to that just because it stays much higher into that travel. Now we'll jump a little bit over to the coil shock and we'll look at some of the pros and cons of that. So the coil shock, just as it states, is running a coil spring over the dampening system itself. So what's really nice about this shock and the pro of it is, again, now that seal head is a much smaller seal head, less friction, a lot easier to start to get this shock to move. Where this is going to benefit into small bump sensitivity, keeping that tire super planted to the ground. Really on like those off-cambered corners that you're getting a little loose on, this is going to stick that tire to the ground and you're going to have so much traction out of there. Little bit difference though with these types of shocks is because it is running a coil shock on here, what you do have is spring rates. Instead of the versatility of being able to add in air pressure into the shock to be able to adjust for rider's weight, or the bike's curvage rate on there, what we have is a spring rate. All of our springs here are actually going to have a weight rating on them. The weight rating is going to be changed to your rider weight as well as the bike itself. So you might want to contact our gear advisors to get a little bit more help about what spring rate's best for you. Right here I have a 457 pound spring rate. They're always going to be listed right onto the spring of what the physical weight of the spring is. So what you're going to get with a coil shock is a much more linear ride characteristic. And when I mean linear, what this is going to be is the feeling of the shock is going to be a little more consistent through the whole stroke itself. So if you're liking that real planted, real soft, real buttery feel, that's really what you're going to get out of the coil shock. The only downfall though is at that ending rate of your travel, you're not going to get that ramp up. You might be bottoming out a little bit more. So that's the downfall of it. Some bikes can work really well with the progression that's built into the suspension itself to be able to handle that. Some are gonna be a little bit too linear for this type of setup. So again, what this shock is really gonna be benefiting for is the guys that are riding through the real rough stuff, really like that planted feel, real buttery feel to it, especially like a lot of rocky downhill stuff, off-camber type of cornering. You're gonna definitely have that traction that you're looking for. Downfall though on that is you're not gonna get quite that pop. You're gonna get a little bit more bob out of the bike and stuff while you're pedaling. And then that's gonna translate over into that. Also with a coil shock, we're gonna add typically about a pound more. You know, so if you're someone that's really worried about the weight of the bike or so, we are gonna be adding more weight on there to it. But realistically, just looking for what you're looking out of the bike. Are we looking for a little better pedaling platform, a little bit more poppy, I like to jump? Or are we looking for something to be just all out, planted, the best traction that I can get? Then I would go ahead and suggest a coil shock for your new ride. Thank you for staying tuned with us at Jenson USA. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to our gear advisors. They'd be happy to help you out and keep pedaling.